Good morning and welcome to HDA Education. Today we are joined by Jay Ginnanen, the co-founder and president of Wrenchway, a very unique platform designed to connect jobs with people and people with jobs. Welcome, Jay. Really looking forward to discussing the people landscape, if you will.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. I always enjoy our conversations and think this one will be fun too.
Yeah. So you spend your days waiting in this current world of people shortage and so on. What's the current job market look like to you? What are you seeing that's happening right now?
I think there's still a huge need for quality people. I think it's not maybe as bad as what it was a year ago. I don't know that the desperation is there as much, but there's still a really, really huge need, and one that I think you if you're in it and you're trying to find those people, it's really, really hard to get through, right? So it probably is magnified if you're actually going through that scenario right now. But I do think it's loosened a little bit. It's still really, really hard to find people. So it's I know that's a really vague way of putting it, and it probably changes depending on where you're at geographically, but there are challenges, there are opportunities, there are ways that I think you as a company or as a shop should be looking at this in terms of constantly focused on trying to be the best employer, the destination employer that's out there. And the more that we can focus on that, I think regardless of where the market stands in terms of people, I think the better off you're going to be.
So I know much of what you do includes getting the pulse of the potential employee. What are you seeing for them? What are their pain points or what are they looking for? What kind of struggles and I guess goals are they trying to accomplish looking for a job?
I think it's still primarily pay, right? In a lot of ways, I think those folks that are maybe in the market are looking for advancements in pay, but it's not always pay, right? I think pay is a lot of times the gatekeeper to being able to get that really, really good person in the door. But they are looking for good leadership. They're looking for maybe more progressive leadership. I think in a lot of ways, the old school mentality of how we manage people has changed over the years. When I was growing up in the industry, and I'm sure you probably had a similar experience. It was very much, I learned the hard way, so you've got to learn the hard way. And I think as you get this next generation of technician into shops, and it's not just technicians, right? I think this goes for pretty much any position that's out there. They're probably not going to put up with that as much, right? And the reason why they're not going to put up with it as much is because there are a number of opportunities out there for them to go pursue. So, I think 20 years ago, it was you're lucky to have a job, and now it's the opposite, right? We're lucky to have those good employees that are in our businesses, and we have to put our best foot forward as an employer in all aspects, right? When we ask about what's most important to potential employees, I think we have to take a step back and just understand that everybody's an individual. Everybody's situation is different. Some people might value insurance more than they do the money because of who they're married to, right? And so I think being able to have that conversation with people, and granted, you're not going to be able to make everybody happy all the time. And I think that's a recipe for misery if you're trying to make everybody
Sure.
happy all the time. But I think if you do have good relationships with your team and you are actively talking to your current team, that's really how you build that really compelling offering, is just by being able to be on top of it and understand, hey, if you're not offering a retirement plan, for example, you might need to consider that. Or if you're not offering insurance, or if you're not offering whatever key benefit it is, and your team desires that, not only are you going to have a tough time trying to find new people, you're going to have a really tough time trying to keep your own people.
Sure. So let's back away for just that question for a second, but tell us a little bit more about Wrenchway. How'd you get started, and how would you describe what your competitive advantage might be to the marketplace?
Yeah, so I'll start with kind of the origins of how we came to be. I've spent my entire life in the industry. Like you, came up on the automotive side actually, and then switched over to the diesel side throughout my career, and worked for an OEM, worked for a dealership, and then actually currently own my family's independent repair shop as well. So I've kind of been through all aspects of the industry. And one of the things that I realized growing up was that we didn't have enough technicians in the industry. It was always a struggle to find people. So in 2017, I launched a company called Find a Wrench. That was more of a recruiting type of company that was strictly focused on technicians. We grew that a lot over the years until 2020, to where we really looked at it. And I think one of my frustrations with our company at Find a Wrench was, one, we grew too fast, but then two, we weren't actually trying to solve the problem, right? Ultimately, it was robbing Peter to pay Paul. And at the end of the day, that's not the way I was raised in this industry. It is truly trying to find a way to make it better for everybody, right? So in 2020, I partnered up with my business partner, Mark Wilson, who had more of a technology background and really process driven person, really a good addition. And we created Wrenchway. And the reason we created Wrenchway was to really be able to allow a technician to do their due diligence on a shop and make an educated decision on where they wanted to go work, and doing it in a way that's not like an Indeed ad where you really can't put a whole lot of depth behind what you're trying to offer, but really trying to paint that picture of what a technician could expect when they come to work for your company. And so that has evolved over the years. That's still a core piece to our platform. But we've really kind of taken the school side to the next level. I think, as it relates to our industry and our businesses, being able to grow these schools, to make them stronger, to make them honestly, some of it is giving some of these tech ed programs a backbone so that, at the high school level, they don't get cut, because we're still seeing that issue. And then the post-secondary level, just really being able to have that support needed when you do go talk to administration, or you do go talk with your dean or whoever it might be. So we built out something as part of the platform called School Assist. And with that part of our platform, it's fun. It's funny because when we built that, we're like, oh, we built this really cool tool. It's just going to take off, no problem. We're giving it away to schools with no catch. It should just take off, right? Well, we built it and it didn't just take off. We built it and it was kind of a dud out there for a little bit. And so we understood from our customers basically telling us, hey, we love your platform, but we need more activity from the schools out there. So we actually reallocated some of our staff a couple of years ago to really put a focus on the School Assist side of things, to help really kind of hold the hand of both sides, the shop side and the school side. And we've had some really great results out of that. And it didn't come without learning, right? Like, I think that was one of the things where at first we were blitzing schools and we're probably almost harassing them at some level to get requests out there and really try to get an understanding of what they needed in their programs. And again, as we kind of took a step back and listened to them, they said, hey, just maybe once a quarter, let's get together and put together a list of things that we need. So we're actually going into that time of year right now where we're starting to reach out to schools again, starting to get their lists and their requests out of what they're looking for. And our hope is that by bringing industry together to help support these schools, we do put more people into the industry, and we do give a more accurate picture of what the industry is all about. I think that's one of my concerns in general, is at times I feel like we're almost overselling to the younger generation, where we're really trying to get them into the industry. And at times we'll say, you're not going to get oil on your hands anymore. And you're like, you're still going to get oil on your hands to start off with, right? I think at some level, just painting a realistic picture of what they can expect, that they're not going to make $100,000 a year right off the bat. But if they come in and they work at this and they become a true professional in this, that the sky's the limit. So anyway, that's all to say that the school portion of the platform has grown a lot. We're really proud of that side of the platform. And then lastly, we have a bunch of resources out there for the shops that are on our network in the form of guides. And we've got a few people on our staff that are really, really talented, much more than I am at writing guides and being able to kind of put best practices out there of things that you can do to make yourself a better employer or make yourself stand out to those technicians that are out there. So a lot of resources on the platform that I think if you use the program, it can't help but make you better. It's just a matter of you actually using the program. And I think a lot of times that's the fun part for me. The most challenging part for me is that in order for us to change our luck as an industry, we kind of have to change some of our habits and we have to change some of the stuff we do. And it can't be a last resort. People have to be a priority within our companies. Otherwise, nothing's going to change. And really, that's our hope with Wrenchway as a whole. Is how do we push you a little bit to be a better employer?
Sure. So what do you say to our members? So if those are watching that are not sure, but we've actually joined with Jay as a partner with Wrenchway for HDA Truck Prime. What do you say to those members who are looking for people and they want to get involved, but they don't know how to get involved? And the other thing, the second part of that is, what is the expected return on their involvement? Like in my days as an educator and with some of these advisory boards, we have companies come in, they'll come for one meeting and they think they're going to hire people. It's just it's a farce, honestly. You have to be part of that. You have to be, I think, one of their partners with the school or group that you're trying to connect with. What can you say to them to help them understand the process a little better?
And that's a really, really good point. And I think when we talk about this, it is a little bit about managing expectations, right? I think if there's a company that's out there that's promising you the world in terms of finding you a technician, I saw an ad the other day for like, we'll find you an A-level technician within a week guaranteed. And I'm like, I'm very, very skeptical
Good luck.
of what you're putting out there. But I think coming to the realization that there isn't a silver bullet that's just going to take care of all of your problems, and that this will probably continue to be an issue in our industry for the long haul, right? This isn't something that's just going to change overnight. But when you become comfortable with that, then maybe you start to look at it in a more proactive sense, rather than just, I always call it the post and pray philosophy, where we typically just wait until we're absolutely desperate with our back against the wall, post an ad on Indeed, and become really frustrated when we don't get anybody. And I think there's just a much better way of doing that. And so when you talk about return and what somebody could expect when they're on our platform, it really is dependent on how serious they are about it, right? Are you actually going to put any effort into this? One of the things that we have out there is a tool that I didn't mention before. It's called the activity tracker. And it's just like a task manager that you probably see in a lot of different areas, but we populate that each month with different activities that they should be doing, that the shop should be doing. And you can take what we say and use it, or you can do your own stuff. You can actually delete ours or mark ours as completed and put your own in there. But what I love, one of the activities that's out there, is to do a monthly meeting and make it a staffing meeting that's focused on staffing, and not at the end of a 3-hour meeting where nobody wants to talk about it. Like, actually be intentional about it. And it's a great time to be able to sit down and truly think through your offering, to talk through your staffing needs. How often do we see in our industry that somebody comes in and says, "Hey, I'm going to retire in 5 years," and then we wait till year 4, day
Yeah.
364 before we do anything about it, right? And it's because time flies. It goes so fast that if we're not intentionally talking about it, it can just time goes by at warp speed. So I'm a huge fan of tying a monthly meeting to your activity tracker, and then each month holding yourself accountable and your leadership team accountable to what's actually happening there. And what you'll find, at least what we've found as we've built out Wrenchway, is that a lot of times people will have that first meeting and they get really, really excited about what they're doing, and maybe putting together that agenda and get all fired up, similar to like an exercise program, right? We get all fired up at New Year's every year. And then It just slowly fades away. Well, that's what happens here a lot, right? If you have that monthly staffing meeting, you have that first one, you're really excited about it, and then you go into the next month and you look at your activity tracker and you say, "Oh, we didn't do any of this stuff. We were really fired up about it, but we didn't do any of it." Then you get discouraged, and then it just kind of falls by the wayside. The next month, say the third month, that you see the meeting on the calendar and you're like, man, we don't have time to do this. We're gonna skip over it. And that's a mistake, because what should be happening is you should be looking at it and not getting discouraged, but kind of almost recalibrating yourself in terms of what can we do to actually get some of this stuff done. So maybe the following month, hey, let's focus on one or two of these things, get them done. One of the things that I think is super low hanging fruit are a lot of your websites don't have a careers page, which blows my mind. If you don't have that careers page, why not add your top shop to your website to really simply put a careers page out there? And it makes it really, really easy for you, because then you don't have to go through some web developer to try and put content out there or update something. It's really, really easy to use, and you can use it. So if you're able to look back at that and say in month one, hey, we did get that added to our website. Okay, now we're getting more visibility to what our job openings are and providing that transparency to that technician that's out there that might want to come work for us. And then you can kind of see each month, if you start doing one or two little things, and then maybe you start to build up to do three or four, that all of a sudden you're starting to actually have processes, and you're actually having some depth to your people conversation, right? And then at the end of the year, you look back over 12 months, and if you've checked off a lot of those things, you're going to be in a much, much better position than you would have been had you just sat on your hands and posted on Indeed all the time, right? So I think for me, that can be honestly, it's our most underutilized piece of the platform. I don't think nearly enough people actually use it and take it seriously. But if they do, and one of my favorite clients uses it religiously, and they have more success than anybody out there, because they are meeting on it. They are being held accountable. The owner of the shop is very vested in it and is holding their people accountable when something doesn't get done. And you're starting to see this transformation to where they're no longer desperate. Their shop is full, but they're still working the system. They're still trying to get better. And in the meantime, they've also started to really strengthen their relationships with schools, which were non-existent prior to that. So, I think you start to see, if you follow the plan, you start to become a little bit better, a little bit better, a little bit better. And there probably are going to be times where you fall off the wagon a little bit, but you just need to kind of get back on and keep at it. And the more you can do that, the less of an issue this whole thing's going to be for you.
You mentioned the New Year's resolution, and that seems to be a common theme in a lot of areas. We are all such a society now of instant return. When you're trying to grow your workforce, it's not something where you can just flick the switch and all of a sudden there's 100 people at your door with that, wanting to fill out a job application. In the same way, we see our education a little bit that it's a little bit of a slower return. You have to, if you're going to grow corn, you got to find the soil, you got to till the soil, plant the seed, water it, etc. It's not an immediate gratification. I suspect a lot of this growth in people is probably in that similar fashion. You see that? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think it makes sense. And I think when you start to prioritize it, right? And this is something, if any of you have heard me speak in person, that I get after people a little bit on this, right? Because I always ask, like, what is it that makes you different as a business? And maybe you do have a nice facility, maybe you do have some other type of advantage, but a lot of times what you'll say is it's our people that make us different. But why don't we put any priority on our people then, right? Like, when I say that, I think we have the best intentions a lot of times, and we do want to be that destination employer. We do want to treat our people really, really well. But the saying that I'll kind of reach back to is that people are number one on our priority list, or I'm sorry, Yes, we say people are number one priority, and people are number one on our priority list, yet they're number 100 on our to-do list, right? It always kind of falls to the back burner in terms of how we look at it. And it's because we're busy. We have daily fires that we have to put out.
Sure.
And it, again, time moves at warp speed. So it's really, really hard to stay on top of it. And if you just kind of take your eye off the ball, you're always going to lose track of it, and you're always going to be chasing your tail and trying to trying to get good people in the doors. And so I think as a team in your shop, the more that you have intentional conversations around this, the more that you have intentional activities around this, the more luck you're going to have, right? And I think it's pretty obvious when you kind of take a step back and look at it. And even coming from my time in industry, I was guilty of this a lot of times, right? Where you you maybe take your eye off the ball. Well, I have a really good example of where I did this. Was running parts and service departments for a multi-location John Deere dealership. And we had one location that was, they had bought the location quite a few years back, and the culture was never right. It just wasn't a great place to work. And we worked really hard at getting their team in order, right? We had a few people that exited voluntarily or involuntarily, and basically turned the staff over with the exception of a couple people. And we had that shop in such good shape. They were just a pleasure to be around, good people. And we sat back and we're like, you know what, mission accomplished, we did it. Well, then, like, it's almost like karma kind of bites you, right? And it was like 2 weeks later, we had one person quit, like on a Monday, and then later that week, another technician get in a car accident and actually had an issue, like a back issue, like broke their back, and was out for like 9 months. And so we went from being, kind of fat and happy, sitting back thinking, hey, you know what, we did it, we fixed the shop, to being turned right back on our lid again and becoming desperate again to try and find people. And so what happens is when you fall into that trap, and a lot of you are in this trap right now where you struggle to find people. And I'll hear it at conferences when I'm speaking where, hey, I'll hire anybody that can fog a mirror, right? Because I can't find anybody. And what that does is it creates a culture that's not sustainable, good or bad, right? In a lot of ways, that creates, those desperation hires create turnover. You're more likely to hire a cancer because you're not taking your time to hire somebody, and you're not creating a culture that you want, right? Yeah, I think at the end of the day, when we talk about culture, it should be about, do people like to work together? Do they like to come to work? Do they like being in the shop? And not every day they're going to like being in the shop, right? I don't think any job anybody loves being there every single day. But I think you all know when you've been in a culture that is really, really good, and you also know when you've been in a culture that's really, really bad. And we actually we had an author on the podcast that, gosh, we released a couple weeks ago, and I asked him how long it took him when he walked into a business to see if they have bad culture. And he's like, within seconds, I know
Sure.
if it's a good or bad culture, right? And I think most of us probably do, if you're being honest with yourself. And again, I think it's just because if you've got that bad culture, I think if you look back at your hiring practices and saw how often that you're hiring out of desperation, it probably adds up, and you probably understand why.
Yeah. So another question here, what steps are in place to have options for non-technician roles, such as parts sales, warehouse, et cetera? I mean, I'm sure there are a lot out there that are interested in the field of, either automotive or heavy duty, and maybe they don't want to be a wrench, but they might be trained in that or something. What options or what steps do you have in place for that sort of role?
Well, I think if you look at any of our Top Shops pages, you'll see that it's probably appealing. It's focused for technicians, but I think in a lot of ways it could be used for about anything, right? Just because it is just so much about sharing your culture and being able to be transparent with somebody. And when you look at the opportunities that are out there, there are a lot of technicians that don't want to be technicians anymore, right? And I think if you look at our aging workforce as a whole, there's probably plenty of people that have desires to do something different and still have that technical background that is really, really valuable to a lot of us.
Yeah.
And so, one, I think as far as Wrenchway is concerned, I think you can use the page in a number of different ways. We do have people that are advertising for parts specialists or parts counter people, other positions, service managers, uh, general managers at some point too. But I think as a business, every business is different in terms of their size and really what they're looking for to add to their team. And if you value that technical background in a non-technical role, or really a non-hands-on fixing stuff type of role, I think there's a lot of opportunity for you to lay out some form of career plan for that technician, right? And really showing them that there's an avenue. And it's funny. I just had a talk with a young technician earlier this week. And I was talking to him, and he's like, I I like this. I feel like I'm getting kind of bored already, and that worries me because I don't know what my next step is. And I said, listen, you're laying the foundation right now to a lot of different opportunities. That's how I started off, right? Was as a technician, and I never thought it would lead to what it would lead to. But I think as you get that background, and as you make connections within the industry, and as you start to see that there are other opportunities, there are a lot of really, really good opportunities for anybody in this industry. Where we struggle at as an industry are telling the stories of those people. I think in a lot of ways, a technician, when they get into a shop, they think, hey, I'm going to work in this bay for the rest of my life. And it's kind of depressing at some level, right? Like
Yeah.
they don't see kind of what that next step is. And whether they're staying in a technical role or maybe moving into more of a white collar role, our job as an industry should be to paint that picture and to share those stories of those folks that have made that transition already. It's not just saying that we have career advancement opportunities, it's actually showing people that have actually done that, right? And I think that makes it a lot more believable. And I mean, how many, Martin, I'll ask you this. I mean, how many examples of that do we have in our industry of people that started off as technicians and have made one heck of a living for themselves, whether in a shop or outside of the shop? They're all over the place, aren't they?
All over the place. Yep. I mean, I'm another example myself. I never saw myself in this role. You just never know what the future holds. So with that in mind, Jay, is that something you can help our membership set up, is to show the shop profile and help them map out career path and so on? It seems to me, as I recall some statistics, outside of money, that tends to be one of the top reasons people leave an organization. So not only can you attract people if you have a plan, but you're also going to retain your people better if you have a progression of opportunity for them. Is that something you can help the membership sort of map out and sort of highlight in their on their website if they join with the Wrenchway platform?
Yeah, a couple different things there. We have guides that help kind of whether you're trying to put together a program or if you're trying to, as you said, kind of really put that together for your current staff. We've got a lady on our team that's fantastic. She's been with me from the start. She's got several decades of HR experience, and that's really who we lean on to write a lot of those guides. So they're coming from experience, and I think we're always adding to them. We're always adding new content out there to be able to offer resources. So yeah, absolutely there. And then yeah, for the career plan, like when I look at it, and I was talking about telling stories with a Top Shops page, especially if you're linking it to your website or using the QR code and advertising it at your parts counter or whatever it might be, there's such a great opportunity out there to just go out and share those stories of a Martin that started off as a technician and grew into an outstanding role. And so, I think not only can we help with the part of being able to put something in place, and a lot of it does lean on the shop, right? Like you have to take some initiative to actually
Sure.
lay out a plan. It's not as hard as you think, right? Like if you just dedicate a little bit of time, you can lay out a career plan. A lot of it's sitting down and talking with that person, right? Sitting down and talking with that employee and laying out a career plan for them based on what their interests are. And really, I think that gives you a lot of insight into that person and the way they think in general. If you can sit down and consistently have good conversations, and it does help you hold them accountable for getting that certification that they need to get, because that's part of their plan to get where they're wanting to go. So
Sure.
I think it helps there. But then the other side of, we actually have a video tool on the platform, and you can actually go out, click on it, and it will prompt the questions and come up on a video like this, and you can answer the questions. And what I love about that is it makes it really simple for you to be able to create a little content to put on your Top Shot page, and you can use it other places too, right? Anything you do on Wrenchway, you can share it on Facebook, you can share it on X or Twitter or whatever it is
Sure.
now. You can share it wherever, but you're bringing more visibility to the fact that, hey, you know what, this person started off here and they've made it here and they worked their tail off to get there. But you're shining a light on those success stories, and I think in a lot of ways our industry struggles with that. We struggle to tell those stories and share those stories. And if you think about, say you go to a school and you're talking to a school and you're in front of a class and you say, hey, listen, there's all kinds of career opportunities out there. Really, I don't know that hits home with anybody, right? Like they probably roll their eyes and say, well, everybody says that. But then
Sure.
if you could then play a video where it shows John talking about how he started off cleaning the shop and then worked his way all the way up to running the store. There's an actual example of somebody that is doing what you're saying that you do, right? So I think visibility to those stories is such a huge part. And honestly, it's a huge opportunity because not everybody's willing to do it. There aren't a lot
No.
of people that want to get in front of a camera, and I totally understand it. It's not the most comfortable thing in the world, but if you can become comfortable with that and you can tell your story, I look at so many of the businesses in our industry and how cool the stories are of how they built the business and what it took to build the business. I think some people shy away from their early day stories of, hey, we struggled to make payroll back in the day, right?
Oh
Like
my.
it's you know it's those are fascinating stories
Yeah.
that kind of show how hard you've worked to get there, and really it honestly humbly states that you're stable as a business too.
Yeah.
And,
Well,
yeah,
that you're real. People
yeah,
connect, I think, very well to real stories. It's just,
authentic.
yeah, authentic. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, and just like anybody, right? Like I saw a technician ad looking for technicians, and in that ad, it was from a big company, and you could tell that the people that were talking were not technicians; they were actors. And I talk about this a lot, but especially with technicians, they're typically kind of a skeptical group. Like, why, is this real? It maybe seems too good to be true. And in a lot of ways, it's hard to blame them. They've probably been burned by one or two shops in the past, and maybe they're a little reluctant to believe everything you're saying. So, I think the more authentic you are, the more believable it is, and it really is a way to show off your personality.
Well, Jay, thank you so much for your time. I'll post the information as to how to get in contact with Jay and Wrenchway. And again, thank you so much. Hope that's some insight for you out there. Thank you as well. And have a great day. Thanks.
Thank you, Martin. Thank you, everybody.
Bye bye.